Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever actually stopped and wondered how a late-night talk show host takes the literal chaos of a 24-hour news cycle and somehow spins it into a tight, really entertaining 10-minute routine? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to impartially deconstruct a super densely packed Jimmy Kimmel line monologue to see under the hood. We want to know exactly how late-night satire is built from the ground up, looking at the mechanics, the structure, and those strategic choices the writers make to just keep us hooked. So here is our roadmap for today to see how the host builds a cohesive narrative. 1. Sports and family. 2. Critiques and posts. 3. Snakes and smartphones. And 4. A presidential parody.
All right, Section 1, Sports and Family Absences. Let's see how the broadcast actually sets the stage here.
A monologue rarely ever starts with the heaviest news of the day. Instead, it hooks you with lighter fare. And this brilliantly illustrates the comedic technique of juxtaposition. On the one hand, we've got the celebratory, unifying energy of the New York Knicks' recent playoff success. But then, the writers completely smash that together with political family gossip, specifically Donald Trump's notable absence from his son's wedding down in the Bahamas. By placing these two entirely unrelated events side by side, the host is creating this immediate, super engaging entry point for us. It's a deliberate strategy, basically telling the audience, hey, we're going to talk about everything that happened today, no matter how totally disconnected it seems. Blending high-profile sports updates with celebrity family dynamics acts like a palate cleanser, It opens the door for the much sharper commentary that's about to follow.
Moving right along to Section 2, Critiquing Contradictions in Posts. This is where the monologue shifts gears from just observing things to really analyzing them. Here, the monologue impartially targets the former president by highlighting two very specific areas of messaging. First, Kimmel zeroes in on contradictory foreign policy statements regarding Iran. But to keep this heavy statecraft from getting, a bit too dry, it's instantly paired with a critique of the former president's all-caps social media posts celebrating Memorial Day. By pointing out the inconsistencies in both high-stakes global politics and just everyday online behavior, the show creates this multi-layered critique, and that really appeals to all different types of news consumers.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that these real-world communications are utilized as the factual foundation for the segment's ongoing political commentary. Satirical critique isn't just making things up out of thin air, right? It's the process of using humor to analyze and highlight genuine contradictions in what political figures actually say and do. The joke only lands because it's anchored in actual headlines. It transforms pretty dry news into a totally accessible, engaging narrative.
Okay, Section 3. Snakes and unsecure smartphones. Let's dive into some of the more, let's say, bizarre behaviors.
Now notice how we can cleanly categorize the absurdity of this segment into targets and tactics. On one side, we have the ridicule directed at Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s strange and heavily documented interactions with snakes in the wild. Wild, right? Then, on the other side, the host pivots back to Donald Trump, but this time focusing on reporting around security flaws found in his newly released branded mobile phones. It's a fascinating look at how modern politicians are analyzed, not just as policymakers, but honestly, as pop culture figures.
And this categorization really reveals how the show maintains our attention. Just when you think the monologue is settling into a standard rhythm of political takedowns, bam, it pivots to these highly unusual, specific personal and business stories. The humor just escalates by focusing on the completely unexpected, like a politician interacting with a snake, and the unsecure, like the vulnerabilities of a presidentially branded smartphone. It definitely keeps the audience on their toes, proving that truth is, for sure, often stranger and funnier than fiction.
Finally, Section 4, a presidential parody sketch. This is where the standard stand-up format seamlessly transitions into a fully produced comedic sketch.
By bridging these concepts, the host shows how the very real news of unsecure modern smartphones serves as the absolute perfect, logical setup for absurd historical sketch comedy. So reality gives us the setup, new Trump-branded mobile phones with reported security flaws. And then the punchline, or the parody, is presented as this imagined historical scenario, Abraham Lincoln trying to act as a salesman for his own branded mid-19th century telephone.
Using Abraham Lincoln, a figure we typically revere for his solemnity and historical gravity, as a cheesy salesman playfully skewers the whole current landscape of politicians selling branded consumer products. It takes a modern phenomenon that we probably already find a little bit strange and amplifies it by placing it in an entirely inappropriate historical context. Honestly, it's a brilliant way to wrap up the segment. It ties right back to those earlier jokes about merchandise while sending the audience off on a really high theatrical note.
So I want to leave you with this question to really reflect on. We've seen how a single monologue can map a path from the Knicks playoffs to foreign policy in Iran to RFK Jr. snakes, right up to Abraham Lincoln hawking unsecure phones. How does this kind of late-night satire actually shape our understanding of complex political news? Does mashing up sports, wildlife, and presidential merchandising impact the way we digest our daily headlines? It's definitely something to consider the next time you tune into the late-night news. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how the media you consume is constructed.